Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more. Coming to Dallas, Texas, September 14th, 15th, and 16th, 2018, the Blockchain and Future Tech Expo. This is going to be a gigantic conference of over 5,000 people. We're going to be talking about blockchain and its applications. We're going to be talking about quantum computing, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and several other future technologies that are poised to and actually changing our lives as we speak. Here's why you should attend. As you may know, early adopters are the ones that investigated and profited from things like the gold rush in the 1800s, from the dot-com boom in the 1990s, from the internet boom in 2005, from the smartphone explosion in 2007, from the real estate boom that ended in 2008, and of course, from the Bitcoin boom that started in 2012. Early adopters act now. They don't wait till later. They go out west first. In their covered wagons, they find the biggest gold nuggets. If you consider yourself an early adopter and you want to find the biggest nuggets, then you owe it to yourself to attend this upcoming conference. Blockchain is going to affect how we control and store our medical data, how we send money around the world, how we bank, and more. But artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and cybersecurity will play a pivotal role in our lives as well. And that's why our next event, September 14th to the 16th at the Dallas Convention Center, is going to have not only 5,000 plus attendees, but will showcase blockchain, AI, cybersecurity, quantum computing, and more. You want to get in on the coming gold rush of future tech and opportunity as an early adopter. Don't be left out. To register, go to bftexpo.com. That's blockchainfuturetechexpo.com. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to the Future Tech Podcast. I am Alan Thomas, and I'm being joined today by Manny Puentes, founder and CEO of Rebel AI. How you doing, Manny?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, it's going well. You know, it's just good to have you here. We'll just jump right into it. Tell us about Rebel AI. Who are you guys? What do you do?
Well, so I'm Manny, as you introduced me here earlier. I've been in advertising for about 20 years, building, DMPs and SSPs, and have been, pretty deep in technology in the advertising industry, and noticed that there were actually a couple of things that were cropping up that would allow for fraud to enter into the ecosystem. And as we started researching some of these problems about that time, domain spoofing and some of the other topics had started to pop up. So I founded the Rebel AI in October of 2016, and we started to solve a lot of the domain spoofing problems that were happening in the advertising ecosystem. Are you familiar with domain spoofing?
Not that much. I was going to ask you, can you go into a little bit more detail about what that is, just for our listeners?
Yeah, for sure. So essentially, when you go to a website, let's just use New York Times as an example. You go to the website, you load the page, and there are advertisements that show up. And so advertisers publishers work really hard to curate a lot of that content, and they use advertising to as a revenue. Revenue to help fund that content curation. And essentially, what's happened is when you actually go to a website, you load New York Times, that actually calls a bunch of platforms in the background, and those are advertising platforms such as DFP, and then there are other SSPs out there that connect to DFP. And essentially what's happening is the way that the ecosystem works is that if you think about it from left to right, a publisher being on the left and an advertiser being on the right, advertisers are looking to buy audiences from publishers, right? And so in that process, essentially the advertisers have to use platforms that they call DSPs, which are demand-side platforms. or SSPs, and essentially they create campaigns and schedule those campaigns, and they're looking to buy that page load that happens on the publisher side. And essentially what's their degree of separation apart, right? Because there are multiple platforms in between those two sides. And what's happened is on the advertiser side, they use what they call whitelists and blacklists, or exclusion lists or inclusion lists, and those are domains, if you will. And so domains are essentially when you go to your browser and you type NewYorkTimes.com, in that URL, that www.newyorktimes.com is a domain. And what's happened is that the targeting that's being used is based on that string, and that string can be changed along the transaction path. So essentially, anybody can just go into the protocol and say, load a web page from like a fake site, and then change that string to say New York Times, and essentially that's what they call domain spoofing. So you're pretending to be New York Times, but you're not. But essentially you're paying for all the content curation and audience curation the New York Times has actually built, except that you're not really getting that real value. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's sort of like an intercept.
Yeah. So I mean, in its simplest terms, it's intercepting and then just changing the string. So there's not a lot of security around media trading, right? So, essentially what we do is we ensure that if you're a media buyer and you're purchasing New York Times, we ensure that all your media is really actually landing on the New York Times destination, and we do that through cryptography, right? So we do that with public and private keys, and the concept of a wallet or a wallet that exists in blockchain technology. So that kind of starts to get us into blockchain and what we do, but essentially what we're doing is protecting media delivery in that scenario that I was explaining to you.
And you said you're doing that using blockchain technology? That's
right. So for us, blockchain, the technology itself isn't rocket science, right? It's not it's not hard. Technology is actually easy. But what we'd like to talk about is we kind of break it up into three components. So blockchain itself, we think about it as identity, which is public and private key, the wallet, if you will. And then we think about it as consensus, which is once you have a transaction, having, multiple parties agree that the transaction happened, and then cryptocurrency, right? So those three components make up a full blockchain solution. So what we've done is we've said, okay, well, publishers need to protect their identity. So we want to ensure that if they put content or they actually put anything on, into the advertising ecosystem, that they're known mathematically, right? So that's just basically saying anytime a web page loads, we'll take their private key and we'll digitally sign the pages that are being rendered in the browser. So essentially, when buyers are buying their inventory, they'll always, it's always a guarantee that they're buying the right inventory because we've digitally signed those pages for co-authoring, if you will.
And so with the usual entities or businesses that you work with, or do you find I would assume it's mostly businesses and not so much, or large businesses and not so much small mom and pop operations that come to you?
Yeah, I would say, we're working with some pretty big agencies and publishers. So, they're not mom and pop shops, although mom and pop shops are starting to use platforms, but bidding platforms for a lot of their outreach. So advertising is becoming accessible to everyone, right? Digital advertising. So you've got platforms out there that a smaller mom and pop shop could use to do local advertising, and so they're affected by this as well, right? And in fact, they're probably more impacted by these types of problems, because they don't have as much money as your corporations would have, right? So, I mean, there's millions of dollars that are being lost right now in advertising due to delivering media to destinations that will never generate any ROI because they're fake.
And so in putting together Rebel AI, what are some of the difficulties that you and your team encountered in putting together the company and kind of getting up and running?
Well, I mean, so like I said, I've been in advertising for 20 years, and we kind of went to the drawing board and we started to figure out how we would solve this domain spoofing problem and start to give publishers an identity. And so we patented a solution to solve for this domain spoofing problem. But at the same time, we giving an identity to publishers and protecting it and ensuring advertisers were always delivering to the right places. What we found is that, the technology is the technology, right? It's something that we put together, that we started to put together in October of 2016. But I'd say the hardest piece of any company or just any solution is just socializing it and helping people understand what it means to their bottom line, right? So I'd say blockchain is a really new, at least to the advertising ecosystem or market, is a pretty new technology. So people don't really understand, what it means or what the components are. So the edification process has been probably not I wouldn't say it's the hardest, but it's one of those things that just takes time for people to understand. So, but I think that's true to any business. If you're on the cutting edge and you're really solving problems with new technologies, you have to go out and educate the masses so that they understand what that means to their bonuses or whatever it may be, that are actually using the tools to solve problems.
Right. You kind of have those early adopters, and then at a certain point, some event or series of events, all of a sudden it kind of breaks wide, and then everybody wants it, and then your conversations kind of change, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you have to really help people understand why they're doing what they're doing, right? We feel really confident here at Rebel AI because we have a solution that actually works today, and we know that we're actually changing the paradigm and will really make a big impact with what we're bringing to market. So, sometimes those things take a little bit longer, but, it's really just building the foundation within, building the foundation and really helping people navigate what it means, right? So those are the things that we're actually focused on, and I wouldn't say that they're that complicated, but it just takes time to build a business with strong foundation, and that's what we're doing.
And so I know you guys. I know you said you haven't been around that long, but I'm sure if you were to think about some of the main achievements that you've had so far, I'm sure there are some favorite days or favorite wins where you kind of jumped over a hurdle and you were like, yes, we're really on our way.
Well, since day one, I felt like we were really on our way. I was pretty confident about what we were doing since day one. I think some of my favorite aspects of building the business was doing it together as a team and really enjoying those moments where, we had breakthroughs, right? Not everything was perfect at the beginning. I think, we had some ideas on how we were going to solve it, and then, they didn't work, so we go back to the drawing board and figure out why. So I would just say, some of the breakthrough moments were just, collaborating with the team and actually solving a real problem. And then it was the first, I would say, when we had our first major install, we celebrated that and kind of looked at each other and felt like, here we go, right? So those were some pretty special moments. And since then, we've put a lot of hard work into talking about the problems and educating the market around blockchain and how, what our strategy has been to date to introduce something like blockchain into advertising. And now we're talking to people and they understand what we're doing, and those are some pretty breakthrough moments when you're out and talking to people in New York and around the world, and they call you and say, hey, we know what you're doing, right? And we like it. And those are some pretty big moments for us. And so we're continuing to to carve out a path, and it's been fun for sure.
Right, and I just had and it just made me think when you're first putting together the infrastructure and the team. How do you figure out the best fits for that initial team when you're getting started? Because I figure you have to kind of stay lean in those beginning days.
Yeah, I mean, the team that I've worked with, I've worked with for many years. But along the way, you meet people, and you just know that they have what it takes to help you in the journey. It's just one of those things that when you meet good people, you know it, right? And for me, I've always looked for a strong, foundation. They don't necessarily have to be great at a particular, thing that I'm looking for. I'm just looking for people that are passionate and passionate and hungry and want to learn. I mean, those types of people for me, they even excite me, right? I wake up in the morning, I'm like, man, they're excited. I'm excited. Everybody's excited to work. So I just look for people that are genuine and have a good, strong foundation. I mean, those things mean a lot more to me than someone that is extremely well suited for the craft, but hard to get along with.
Understood. And in the time that you've been working with the company or all working together, have there been any ideas or developments that maybe people have come up with where you say, well, that's a little too ambitious for today, but maybe in a couple of years we could get that done, or maybe even longer we could do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we run into those things all the time. I think, most startups do. But one of the things that we pride ourselves on is focus and execution. So, those things do come up. We write them down and we, maybe save them for a later time. But we try to stay pretty focused and we try to be, if you will, which is probably a poor analogy, we try to be the Chick-fil-A, right? We only make chicken, right? So we're solving this domain spoofing problem. We want to eradicate it and then continue to build upon the ideas that we have, that we've come up with along the way. But I think for any startup, staying focused, making sure you have product market fit, ensuring that, you're not coming up with ideas that nobody else cares about, and really understanding your client, right? Really understanding the people that are behind that are behind, some of the media buying processes, that, you're not just going and forcing a solution, in their workflow, but really understanding what they're doing and providing a solution that they can easily integrate is key to success and ensuring you have product market fit.
And in terms of a roadmap for the next couple of years of Rebel AI, what does that look like? What can we expect to see coming down the pike?
I mean, we're like I said, we're really highly focused on eradicating domain spoofing. We think it's a big problem in advertising. And then as we continue to forge ahead, ensuring we're listening to our clients and, building products that, they can continue to utilize and to make them successful. So I'd say, we've, like I said, we're focused on the three components of blockchain. The first is public and private key, and we're using public and private keys to solve domain spoofing by applying digital signatures and so on and so forth to every page load. Then establishing the next version of consensus, right? Right now, there's hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that flow through advertising. Going through the edification process of helping people understand what transparency means, and as we continue to make as we continue to roll out our product, I would say the edification process is probably one of the biggest components. And then continuing to push the blockchain initiative. So what you'll see from us is our solutions that we're putting in the market, and a lot of material around what it means, and continuing to add more and more features to the product that we're currently building upon.
And what would you say is the big takeaway that you'd want our listeners to come away from when listening to this interview? What do they need to be thinking about when they think about Rebel AI?
I would just say, I mean, if you're in advertising, we're absolutely, are 100% focused around security and protecting the identity of those that are putting their products on the market. And, for advertisers, we want to, give them a solution that knows they're 100% protected and not going to be displaying media on destinations that were not intended. So we're protecting their, investment. But for those that are out building their own company, never stop dreaming and continuing to, innovate and push, their ideas forward, right? Anything's possible if you get up every day and start, marching towards that dream or goal.
Excellent. And what's the best way for anyone hearing this to get in touch with Rebel AI or get in touch with you if they want more information?
They can, we have a contact form. We have, contact@rebelai.com. Also, I'm on LinkedIn. Anyone can reach out to me on LinkedIn or, send me an email directly, ePuentes, it's @rebelai.com. Those are pretty much easy access to us here at Rebel, for sure.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank you, Manny, for coming on to the podcast and giving us a lot of great information, and thank you for your time.
I appreciate the time.
Coming to Dallas, Texas, September 14th, 15th, and 16th, 2018, the Blockchain and Future Tech Expo. This is going to be a gigantic conference of over 5,000 people. We're going to be talking about blockchain and its applications. We're going to be talking about quantum computing, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and several other future technologies that are poised to and actually changing our lives as we speak. Here's why you should attend. As you may know, early adopters are the ones that investigated and profited from things like the gold rush in the 1800s, from the dot-com boom in the 1990s, from the internet boom in 2005, from the smartphone explosion in 2007, from the real estate boom that ended in 2008, and of course, from the Bitcoin boom that started in 2012. Early adopters act now. They don't wait till later. They go out west first. In their covered wagons, they find the biggest gold nuggets. If you consider yourself an early adopter and you want to find the biggest nuggets, then you owe it to yourself to attend this upcoming conference. Blockchain is going to affect how we control and store our medical data, how we send money around the world, how we bank, and more. But artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and cybersecurity will play a pivotal role in our lives as well. And that's why our next event, September 14th to the 16th at the Dallas Convention Center, is going to have not only 5,000 plus attendees, but will showcase blockchain, AI, cybersecurity, quantum computing, and more. You want to get in on the coming gold rush of future tech and opportunity as an early adopter. Don't be left out. To register, go to bftexpo.com. That's blockchainfuturetechexpo.com. Thank you. You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.